I'm melting. It's the end of the world, Blizzy. Ah, I can't take the heat. Ah. You know, a lot of people are freaking out there. And yes, it is warm. It's so warm, I really don't want to take Blizzy out into the heat because, well, she likes to play and she will just go, go, go. And, I don't want her to have heat stroke or something. So, yeah, I'm staying inside where it's nice and cool with her. So she's going to have to suffer being inside for, well, the duration of this little heat spell. And I do want to start off saying, listen, I understand completely the geoengineering, the horrors of the chemtrails, and everything else. But one thing that just kind of bothers me is people freaking out. It's like some people woke up and like, they're trying to kill us, the heat is unbearable. Right, Blizzy? They go nuts. And I don't understand, because, I remember, shit, if you can't remember maybe if you were in high school and remembering certain hot days in the summer where I remember when I was like playing Little League and it was hotter than hell. And I was screaming, it's like 90-something degrees. The coach is going to make us run around the baseball field. What the hell's going on? Well, motherfucker, he can't do that, You always blame the authority. You can't do that. You can't make us do that. We have rights, But retro speaking, being pushed to work harder, well, there's nothing wrong with that, Although we do understand the manipulation of the MK Ultra and everything else throughout our school system, yes, I understand. But I think people overreact in some cases when they wake up. It's almost like they were not aware of their surroundings so much before that when they came aware of it, it was heightened to an extreme amount. Okay? We had hot weeks like this in the past. Sure, they're setting some records, and in some parts of the country, it is ridiculous. But what I did, and some things I did, and Bill knows this, I looked at some things, I like to look into the past, even my own past. And I remember when I was a kid, and I remember, outside my house, I lived in a pretty neat neighborhood, and when I was a kid, the snow from the snowplows just get pushed up against the front yard of the house so high that we used to dig tunnels in them, and have snowball fights with the other kids in the neighborhood. And there were deep, deep tunnels. And, and then as I grew up, I thought, is it snowing less than when I was younger? Or am I just getting bigger and taller and older so the snow doesn't seem as much? And I looked at it in a way that I thought, well, let me look back and see the amounts of snowfalls for when I was a kid in certain age times. And yes, there was more snow. And of course, it was over-exaggerated because when you're a kid, you over-exaggerate everything. And that brings me back to the whole thing when you're waking up. It's almost like you're going back to being a kid again, where things are over-exaggerated. Things, when you wake up, are you put them into a bigger perspective than what they really are. And when you go down that big rabbit hole of over-exaggeration, it gets you caught not being able to analyze what's exactly happening. Okay? And it was just like that when I looked into the whole weather thing. And that's when I started looking down, with the false flags, looking into their history, and even looking into weather patterns. And finding out the flood plans in Sandy Hook. And understood what was going on there with the government grants and everything else. But understanding that was a big insight into things that are going on. And how they have so many different agendas with these false flags. Not just the psychological operations, but also the actual, physical theft of land and water and stuff like that that's actually going on. But we spend more time on their psyop part of it that we miss what's really important. Because when you come across, where these grants are going to, who's dealing with these grants, and whether they're coming from FEMA or their Homeland Security, because they're coming from many different places. you see who the people really are behind this, because you got to understand, if grants are being given and stuff like that are actually being implemented, the people that are involved in them obviously have knowledge in the events that are taking place to set those grants into motion. So instead of us taking the time to learn about, like I said before, behind the scenes, we're spending a lot of time on the distraction. Just like the whole, I'm not going to even mention the case, Billy calls them the Beverly Hillbillies in Texas there. Jed Clampett and Granny there. It's a joke. We can't focus as much on that, although that stuff is so important. But I think by now they've been beyond exposed. So let's go after the people behind them. The only people left that are believing their story are like newly awakened people, maybe, and like the ones that were never fake awake, the ones that were never awakened in the first place. So those people, I hate to say, don't count, but we can't drag dead weight along if we're going to actually do something to change things. And the people that believe that shit are dead weight. They're, the shills, the bigger shills, they're going to pander to them all day long. And I say let them have them, because they're going to weigh them down. Let's start building a community of extremely awake people and rising above the stupidity and really going after some of these people. People have been sending me things about, even monographs taken off. Something's going on with the shills. And, whether it's, Bill says, because he's been around for a long time, he says he sees these things, where it's like like a revolving door. It's like a company. There are people maxed out on their, the way they do things. They maxed out on their, I guess, and their abilities. And their abilities to get so many people to believe or follow or anything else. And there's too many liabilities with them being found out now that they almost need to start replacing them. So you're seeing, especially since we found out, even where Monograph got, we found a doctor that programmed MK Ultra Monograph. So, people like him, they have no choice. They have to disappear him. And they know we're getting closer to people like Jason and Sidethorn and all these other people. So, they're going to start, they have to find ways to basically retire them and then bring in new people. And that's going to be interesting to watch. But the other angle I want to say is because, like people like Bill and other people were able to look at these things, if we start looking into the history of how these things evolved and how they brought in new people and everything else, we may have a chance here to keep a sharp eye on who they're going to bring in for the replacements to stop them in the tracks before they can start deceiving people. So I think the tough part is that they definitely have learned over time on, how to bring these people in and, how to train them for whatever, for the, to huddle the most people around them. But we have some, I think new skills by examining the things in current events that have happened in the truth community. And it's time that we start implementing them in ways that can make a difference. So, be alert for who they're going to bring in for replacements, and calm those people down that are over-exaggerating, the world. We've gone through times of heat. We've gone through times of snow. Earth's cycle is cyclical. My tongue is tied on that word. But there's cycles. And it's just going through another cycle and another cycle. Geoengineering, it's going to affect it a little bit here and there. All right? And it can maybe even affect it a few degrees this way and a few degrees that way. And that could be a major thing, is a few degrees. But the human being is pretty resilient. And those changes, we cannot let them affect our mind and our body. So we have to be more observant and understand that let's not fall for the bullshit where they're overhyping things, and examine those people that are pushing an agenda to something bigger than what it really is. Sometimes it's something simple as them stealing water with a grant, or or just as a distraction or whatever it is. But you need to be able to get back down to earth. You know? They got everybody tied up in all this matrix so far into it. And I'm not saying there's not a matrix. What I'm saying is the one that they got everybody floating off into is theirs. And you don't have to belong to their matrix. Okay? You don't have to be. It's okay to walk around and say, hey, you know what? This is my matrix. I don't want you in my matrix. I don't want you in my matrix. Hey, you're pretty cool. Come in my matrix. Let's chill. You know? It's okay to do things like that. It's okay to be a master of your own universe without thinking that you're God. Because you want to master, you mastering your own universe also entails maybe being in touch with the God as you believe it, but not being it. And you could share that God that you believe in, whatever it may be, on a personal level without convincing everybody else that they have to be a part of this or that, or this Bible, or that Bible, or this bullshit passage, or that bullshit passage. You know? So, you know, just because you're a master of your own universe doesn't mean that you think you're God. It just means you don't have to go along with these bullshit different agendas. It means you could be yourself. And if you want to believe in something your way, feel proud of it. But make sure it's something coming from you. You know, weed out, go back in your own history and weed out the influences that brought you to making these different decisions. And say, what were the good qualities of that influence on my life? What were the bad qualities of that influence on my life? And how, you know, can I make my life better so that it affects the world in a better way? It's not easy for people to do, you know. But you gotta turn the TV off. The influence is off. Find your peace of mind. Find earth. Get back down to the earth, to the ground. You know. Are you powerful enough? Whatever they say anything is, are you powerful enough to do or change that matrix, that different whatever you want to call it? If they brought that into your knowledge, they sure know it better than you do. Okay? The only way you're going to have influence over another matrix is by controlling your own to the extent of ruling it. Mastering your own universe. And the only way you could do that is by doing right by others. And rationalizing what's out there. Being observant. It's heat. Okay, it's hot. It sucks. The air quality is shit. Yeah, Joe Engine has something to do with it. But you're going to make it to next week. And then maybe next week it will cool down a little bit. Maybe it'll get hot again. And then what? We're going to have fall. All right? Then it's going to snow. Then it's going to warm up. And then it's going to get hot again. And then it's going to cool down. And it's going to snow again. There's going to be some years that are hotter than others. There's going to be some winters that are colder than others. But when we get into this blown up world out of proportion, we can't change the world that everybody else is stuck in. The matrix that they're stuck in. Because they're not going to believe it. Because the reality is going to be believable, but they take us beyond what's really happening. So we have to bring it back down to, yeah, there's more going on than what they know. But it's not going on as much as they tell us, because when we relate that to the people that don't know, they'll see it as ridiculous. But if we can get down to what's actually really going on and be able to show them the documentation, show them the bullshit, well then, we got them.